All the characters in the story are over 18. I was waiting for something, but time was moving super slowly. When you want time to hurry up, it seems like it's moving even slower. I went around my house again, checking to make sure everything was in its place and clean. I was so nervous. In the 20 years I've been away from home, I've barely spoken to my sister, Carrie. She was only 5 when her older brother died. When she was 25, she said that she needed to stay somewhere after her divorce from the doc. I was a career soldier and now I'm retired. Since I took the oath, my life has taken me to several countries and into 2 short marriages. The type of marriage that was wrong from the very beginning, like I should have known better. I won't talk about what I did in the army marriages that I'll agree to if asked after retiring. I moved to the upper part of Lower Michigan, a very rural area where neighbors can be both close and miles apart. We weren't close friends, but we weren't distant either. I'll ask you to subscribe to the channel and like it. It won't be hard for you, but it'll be nice for me, and we can keep going. I joined the army a week before I graduated from high school. I left home and wanted to get away from everything in the small town I grew up in, including my parents. They were very conservative Christians, always judging and controlling. I couldn't wait to get out from under their influence. My parents pushed me away as much as I pushed them. I was the one who left, and my younger sister was just collateral damage. I never wanted to hurt her, but to see her I had to talk to my parents, or rather my dad. He took a lot of business trips abroad over the years. I'm a pretty stubborn person when it comes to communicating with my parents, so it was easy to lose contact with my younger sister. She was only 5 the last time I saw her, with a runny nose, freckles, and fiery red pigtails. I felt her tears on my shoulder when I said goodbye. "I miss you already, Kay," she said, tears in her eyes. She buried her face in my shoulder and her words were muffled. "When are you coming home?" "I don't know, little bear. But if you ever need me, just let me know. I'll do everything I can to help you." "What do you want?" "Anything." "What is it?" "Your little finger?" "Yes, your little finger." "What is it?" she asked, holding out her little finger. "Of course, buxom," I said, joining our fingers in an ancient sibling paw. From that day on, we lost any direct contact until I got a short letter from Carrie about her high school graduation. In the letter, she said she still misses me and just wants to hug her big brother again. The photo that came with the letter was from her senior portraits. By then, she had already turned into a beautiful woman. Her hair was long, lush, and wavy, and still very red. Her face was still covered with freckles, but they had faded a bit from her little girlishness. I fell in love with her again when this connection from my past reappeared, but that was 7 years ago. I got an invitation to her wedding during my last business trips. Shortly before I was supposed to return to the States, there was an engagement photo of her and her fiancé. He seemed kind of nervous to me, but if my younger sister wanted him and my parents checked on him, I was in no position to object. In her letter, she said that she and her new husband would move to the East Coast after their wedding. He worked in the sales department of the National Cosmetics Corporation, and he covered the Northeast. I wrote a short note explaining why I couldn't attend her wedding and wished her all the best. I really felt guilty about missing out on my younger sister's growing up years, her graduation, and now her marriage. I swore that when I retired, I'd be more like the brother I'd never been. Fast forward a few years, and I finally retired as a private with a salary of $6. 500 years ago, I decided that the silence of the northern forest would be just what the doctor ordered. I was especially interested in trying to regain any lost affection for my family before I could contact my parents. My father passed away. The email I received from my mother was short and to the point. 500 years ago, I decided to head to the northern forest to clear my head. I was also hoping to reconnect with my family before I could get in touch with my parents. My dad passed away. My mom sent an obituary from our local paper and said he had been cremated and the funeral had already happened. She also said she was going to sell all their stuff and move south to a retirement community run by their church in Florida. But she didn't really encourage me to visit. I guess she still wanted to distance herself. I thought back for a moment to our last years together. I felt the sudden loss of a family I had never really known or understood after I was discharged from the army. I applied to a real estate agency in the area where I wanted to move. I wanted privacy, so I settled on a large plot of several 100 hectares with an old farmhouse and several outbuildings in the center. The house was bigger than I wanted or needed, but the owners couldn't wait to sell it. So I bought the old house along with 80 hectares of woodland for less than 100,000. I figured I couldn't make a mistake, so I paid and signed the papers. The house was in poor but habitable condition. The previous owners hadn't spent much on modern upgrades, so I had a clean slate when I took over. Everything should have disappeared. The house was now mostly finished. I had a new and modern kitchen. The electrical wiring and plumbing were new. The walls and floors in each room had been redecorated. And I even tore down the wall in the bedroom to add a bathroom for the owner. Now there were 3 bedrooms upstairs with 2 bathrooms, and the ground floor also had its own full bathroom. My house was mostly finished, but the one thing I wanted the most was missing. Family that will make this place feel like home. As much as I like the quiet, peaceful countryside of this area, I couldn't have chosen a worse area of the country to look for a wife that was about to change. Now it was early evening when a fairly used and battered pickup truck with a rental trailer attached slowly drove into my yard. My sister Carrie was in the truck for more than a minute before the door finally opened. We talked briefly on the phone. So I knew she was divorcing her husband and moving here. I also knew that she was moving from the East Coast, but I didn't realize that she was moving here as well. The truck door creaked loudly when she opened it, and her foot slipped off the truck. I went over to see if she needed help, but before I could say anything, I heard a screech, and a tornado of red hair flew at me. Oh my God. It's you. She rushed at me with everything she had, and when she got to me, she jumped on me like a spider monkey. I had to do my best not to fall when this 60-kilo whirlwind of red hair, arms, and legs literally stuck to my body. I went over to see if she needed help, but before I could say anything, I heard a screech, and a tornado of red hair flew at me. Oh my God. It's you. She rushed at me with everything she had, and when she got to me, she jumped on me like a spider monkey. I had to do my best not to fall when this 60-kilo whirlwind of red hair, arms, and legs literally stuck to my body. She started kissing me all over my face while tears of joy rolled down her cheeks. Oh my God, Petey. I'm so happy to finally see you again. You'll never know how much I've missed you. Please tell me that we will never break up again. You're never gonna leave me again, are you, no buxom? I live here now. My travel days are over. We will never part again. I can stay forever. I should have known what she was asking before I answered. Of course, forever if you want. Oh my God. I love you so much. Carrie covered my face with kisses again, squeezing my neck. I was starting to feel a little uncomfortable with our close proximity. She was literally tied to me with her arms around my neck and her legs around my... I can stay forever. I should have known what she was asking before I answered. Of course, forever if you want. Oh, by the way, I love you so much, Carrie. She covered my face with kisses again, squeezing my neck. I was starting to feel a little uncomfortable with our close proximity. She was literally tied to me with her arms around my neck and her legs around my waist. Let me look at you. I haven't seen you since you were 5. She posed briefly like a model, then turned around. She was wearing a light green summer dress that ended just above her knees. She was about 5 feet 4 inches. You're beautiful, Carrie. Probably the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. I blurred out the rest. Oh, Pete, I'm a mess. I've been traveling almost non-stop. Hey, let me look at you. I haven't seen you since you were 5. She posed like a model for a second, then turned around. She was wearing a light green summer dress that ended just above her knees. She was about 5 feet 4 inches. You're beautiful, Carrie. Probably the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. I blurred it out. Oh, Pete, I'm a mess. I've been traveling almost non-stop since I left New York. I only slept for a short time in the front seat in a rest area on the highway. She said, I think you're beautiful, Carrie. Do you need help with your stuff? It's getting late, and one thing you'll learn here is that mosquitoes rule the night. She laughed and said that she only had 1 suitcase. I only slept for a little while in the front seat in a rest area on the highway since I left New York, she said. Pete, you're beautiful. Do you need help with your stuff? It's getting late, and one thing you'll learn here is that mosquitoes rule the night. She laughed and said that she only had one suitcase for tonight, but when she unloaded her trailer, there would be a lot more. I dragged her suitcase into the living room, and she grabbed my hand and said, "Show me your house, Pete." I took her on a tour of the lower floor while she OED and added everything. Carrie was particularly impressed with the new kitchen. "Oh, Pete, I'm going to have so much fun cooking for you. Wait until you try my meatloaf." When we went upstairs, I showed her the bedrooms, my master bedroom, and finally the bathroom, which I built from scratch. The room was huge, with a shower cubicle measuring 3 by 3 covered with glass, and several shower heads built into the wall. The ceiling and walls are also impressive. I even made a footstool so my wife could shave her legs in case I ever get married. Cost a lot, but it was worth every penny. I also turned on the heater, as winters can be brutal here. I complemented the room with a huge, bubbling hot tub, a long dressing table with a full-length mirror and combined toilet. Birthday. Carrie had never seen a birthday and told me about it when I explained what they are and how they are in most bathrooms in Europe and how it works. She was momentarily confused, and then she understood. "Are you saying that this is to keep the woman fresh? Won't you wipe yourself with toilet paper anymore?" I suddenly felt awkward talking about something so personal with Carrie. "I like it. Would you mind if I took a shower to freshen up? I haven't had time to clean up for 2 days, so I'm a little mature," she said, lifting her elbow to sniff her armpit. "Oh yes, of course. Use it," I said hastily when she went to the toilet. I felt a bit awkward talking about something so personal with Carrie. I said, "Hey, would you mind if I took a shower to freshen up? I haven't had time to clean up for 2 days, so I'm a little mature." She lifted her elbow to sniff her armpit and said, "Oh yes, of course. Use it," I said, and went to the toilet. My face turned red as I headed for the door. "Pete, could you bring me my suitcase too? I want to put on something clean after the shower," she said, getting up from the toilet. I turned away as I left the bathroom. My God, how my little sister has changed since I left my parents' house. I couldn't believe it. The same parents who were so strict and controlling of me had raised this uninhibited young woman who was in my bathroom. Shaking my head, I promised myself to talk to her about it. As I picked up her suitcase from the hallway, I heard water running in the shower. I didn't want to embarrass Carrie, so I knocked before announcing my return. I opened the door and put the suitcase inside, then knocked again. "Here are your things. Is there anything you'd rather eat? We're too far from the city for delivery, but if you want something special, I could run into the city. If not, maybe we could go to a restaurant. There's not much here except for family-style restaurants, or we could eat at home. Whatever you want." That I couldn't help myself. My gaze shifted to the glazed shower stall. I could barely see my sister's body through the steam as she rinsed her hair. "Let's have dinner at home tonight, Pete. I'm really tired of the trip. Besides, there's not much here except for family-style restaurants, or we could eat at home. Your choice." I couldn't help myself as my gaze shifted to the glazed shower stall. I could barely see my sister's body through the steam as she rinsed her hair. "Let's have dinner at home tonight, Pete. I'm really tired of the trip. Besides, I want to get to know my brother again. Is this normal? That's fine with me. I'm going down the stairs. Call me if you need anything. All right, Pete." I took another quick look at my sister through the fog and left the room. About 30 minutes had passed when I heard Carrie enter the kitchen. I was making sandwiches for us and had my arm back to her when she came into the room. It's good that I installed a water heater at her request. With a normal type of shower, you would run out of hot water while taking a shower, I said before turning around. I turned to face my sister and fell silent. Her hair was wrapped in a towel, and she was wearing only a t-shirt. I turned to face my sister and didn't say anything. She was wearing a towel and a t-shirt. "Sis, are you comfortable? Do you even have a robe?" "Of course I have a robe, Pete. He's in my trailer somewhere. Am I shocking my cute older brother? I didn't mean to. It's just that I feel so comfortable around you. Are the sandwiches ready?" "Ready, sis? I'm starving." "What's up?" She plopped down on a stool at my kitchen table. "Of course. What did you want to drink?" Carrie? Beer or water? Beer's great. Tomorrow, when you're all settled in, we can go grocery shopping if you want anything. Beer is great, by the way, she said, biting into the roast beef sandwich I made. I opened 2 beers and handed her a glass. No glass, big brother. She took a long sip from the bottle. Damn, that's good. There's nothing better than a cold one after a long hot shower. We sat quietly across from each other at the counter and ate hastily. I was curious. I was curious about what happened to Carr's marriage, but I also wanted our reunion to be as painless as possible, so I kept quiet about her personal affairs. But I really wanted to know about our parents. Carrie, I'm so sorry that I missed your growing up years. If it wasn't for Mom and Dad and their control methods, I probably would have found time to visit them. I remember getting your graduation photo. You looked so beautiful. I showed you to the whole squad. I almost got into a fight after a guy said some creepy thing about you. After that, I never shared your photo with anyone else. When I heard from Mom when I heard you were engaged and saw your engagement photo, I got depressed because you grew up and I missed all those years spent with you. You can't imagine how worthless I felt as a brother. Don't apologize, Pete. I know what Mom and Dad could be like. In fact, they tried to pin this holier-than-thou attitude on me. I was pretty upset when I saw your engagement photo because I missed all those years with you. I felt pretty useless as your brother. Pete, don't feel bad about this. Mom and Dad were like that, and they tried to make me feel like I was the one doing something wrong. Did you know that Mom had an affair with someone else for almost the whole time she was married to Dad? I was shocked when I found out, and I told Carrie that I didn't know. I guess no one knew except their small church group. I think all the parishioners. Except our father. All these years, he knew that Mom was the preacher's personal little traitor. I also think Dad didn't die of a heart attack. Well, maybe so, but I think he just abandoned his marriage and died of a broken heart when he found out about it. His mom told him she was moving into a church. Dad knew all this, but he chose to ignore it. I think he was a bit of a hypocrite. He didn't want to be with Mom, but he couldn't live without her. So he left, but he still had his church. He told Mom he was moving to Florida with her and her boyfriend. He said that if he wanted to stay in the north, he could, but he couldn't leave her. He said that the priest would move in with her, and she would sleep with whoever she wanted. He said that Mom never gave him a choice. She wanted him to live with her as a cuckold. She told him that if he wanted to stay in the north, he could, but she wouldn't leave her boyfriend, no matter how many people tried to convince her otherwise. The priest was going to live with her, and she was going to sleep with whoever she wanted. She never gave Dad a choice. Live with her as a cuckold or live apart while she was openly playing in bed with her boyfriend. My reaction was predictable. Are you saying that our mother also had this affair while I was growing up? Without a doubt. By the way, guess who my donor is? Carrie hesitated for a moment. Yes, you guessed it, he's a good old preacher. When I was growing up, I was like, wait, is that how you're explaining the fact that my mom was hooking up with someone else while I was growing up? Carrie said, yeah, I guess so. I mean, she was always naked in bed with that guy, so it's pretty obvious, right? I was like, exactly. And by the way, who's your donor? Carrie was like, well, it's a long story. I didn't notice at first, but our hair colors are the same. I've never had a DNA test, but the evidence was pretty convincing. I wouldn't be surprised if Dad wasn't your donor. Carrie took the last bite, chewed in silence for a minute, and then drank the last of her beer. So, you're my stepsister, right? I had no idea, but your hair is the same shade of red as his. I've never had a DNA test done, but the evidence was pretty convincing. I wouldn't be surprised if Dad wasn't your donor. Carrie took the last bite, chewed in silence for a minute, and washed it down with a last sip of beer. So you're my stepsister, then. Best we really have the same mother, that's right. But now my name is different. No one here knows me. As far as everyone here knows, I'm your old friend from the Far East. We connected to the internet again after you left the army, Carrie. What are you talking about, men? Pete, you live here alone, right? Yes. Do you want to live here? Best we really have the same mother, that's right, but now my name is different. No one here knows me. As far as everyone here knows, I'm your old friend from the Far East. We connected to the internet again after you left the army, Carrie. What are you talking about, men? Pete, you live here alone, right? Yes. Do you want to live alone? Or did you renovate this huge house just for yourself? I was worried about the direction in which our conversation was developing, so I said, you really want a family, of course. How many children would you like? I don't know, at least 2 of them, a boy and a girl. I've always dreamed of playing ball with my son and pampering him. Carrie, did you renovate this huge house just for yourself? Or are you single? I was worried about the direction in which our conversation was going. Of course you want a family. How many kids do you want? I don't know, at least 2, a boy and a girl. I've always dreamed of playing ball with my son and pampering my little princess. Carrie got up from her stool, spread her arms wide and said to me, I'm ready to start whenever you're ready. Carrie, you say what you want with me. You and me. I was definitely slurring my words at that moment. Big brother, okay, here's my plan. I've had 600 miles to think about. Carrie got up from her stool, spread her arms wide, and said to me, I'm ready to start whenever you're ready. I told her that I'd always be ready for her. I said, Carrie, you know you can always count on me. I'm your brother. I was definitely slurring my words a bit, but I managed to say, Big brother. Okay, here's my plan. I've had 600 miles to think about. I told her, it's you and me, both single, right? You need someone to make your home your own. You know, like cleaning, cooking, chopping firewood, having an intelligent conversation, making love. Carrie, you're my little sister, my blood. At that moment I was sweating. Who would want to know we're related? We have different names. If we don't try to get married, no one will suspect anything. People get together all the time. We don't look like family. You're tall and attractive, and I'm short and petite. We're just stepbrothers. Without a blood or DNA test, no one would have suspected anything. Is this worse than what our mother did? Is this worse than what our mother did to our father? She's been cheating on him for almost 40 years. She had 2 kids with other men besides our dad. She and our father took my older brother to God knows where 20 years. Pete, 20 years that I've lost with you because of that selfish fool. Tears were streaming down her face if there was one thing. To our father, she's been cheating on him for nearly 40 years. She had 2 kids with other men besides our dad. She and our father took my older brother somewhere, God knows where, 20 years ago. Pete, 20 years that I've lost with you because of that selfish fool. Tears were streaming down her face if there was one thing that touched me. It was a woman's tears. That was my weak spot, my Achilles heel. I couldn't calmly look at a woman in tears. All right? Carrie, calm down. I didn't say no, did I? I said, moving to hug my sister. So you're saying yes. She looked up. Hopefully tears were still streaming down her pretty face. I looked at her. That touched me. It was a woman's tears that I couldn't handle. I couldn't stand to see a woman in tears. All right, Carrie, calm down. I didn't say no, did I? I said, moving to hug my sister. So you're saying yes? She looked up, hopefully with tears streaming down her pretty face. I looked at her. Hopeful face. Good, of course you can stay, but I'll have to think about making love. Agreed. Carrie jumped on top of me again, snuggling the same way she did when she first got here. It's a deal, she whispered. Damn. I thought we finished our sandwiches and took another bottle of beer. Even in summer, the nights here could be cool. So I lit a fire in the fireplace and we spread a thick blanket on the floor in front of it. Carrie laid down on her back and asked me about the places I served and the people I met. Finally, she asked me about my 2 marriages. Carrie doesn't have much to tell. My first marriage was a mistake from the very beginning. I lit a fire in the fireplace and spread a thick blanket on the floor in front of it. Carrie laid down on her back and asked me about the places I'd served and the people I'd met. Finally, she asked me about my 2 marriages. Carrie doesn't have much to tell. My first marriage was a mistake from the very beginning. She grew up near New York City. Her name was BR. I met her at an after-work party, and that night we met. She was good in bed, so I started considering her as a suitable wife. The problem was that I was often away from home, and she wasn't too picky about who she shared her bed with. The army is a very cohesive group. None of us we all like it when our spouse strays. So there's always someone who looks out for us when we leave the country. We'd only been married for 6 months when I was sent to the sandbox for a year. By the time I got back, I had names, dates, addresses, hundreds of photos and hours of videos. She didn't even try to deny anything when I was pretty happy when my wife did something wrong, because it meant that there was someone looking out for me when I was away. We'd only been married for 6 months when I was sent to the sandbox for a year. By the time I got back, she had names, dates, addresses, hundreds of photos and hours of videos. She didn't even try to deny anything when she was handed the divorce papers. She signed them without even looking at them, and then left the room with her boyfriend. I never saw her again. I was sent back to the service when the divorce became final. The second was a young local girl. I was back in the sandbox. Men in her village, including her male she was handed the divorce papers, signed them without even looking at them, and then left the room with her boyfriend. I never saw her again. I was sent back to the service when the divorce became final. The second was a young local girl. I was back in the sandbox. Men in her village, including her male relatives. They tortured her and then stoned her to death for allowing herself to be defiled. Women are treated differently there than here. They are considered shadows and treated like slaves. All of them have a lower social level than any man. The richest wife is considered inferior to the lowest man. A sheep shepherd returning to my future wife, I'll tell you that I saved her at gunpoint and took her back to the base with me. She was in bad shape, but I took care of her in my room. In the process, I fell in love with her. I was so lonely, and she was so needy that we just got along. When she was able to move around, I asked her to marry me. It took me forever to get permission from the army. I'll tell you, I saved her at gunpoint and took her back to the base with me. She was in pretty bad shape, but I took care of her in my room. And in the process, I fell in love with her. I was so lonely, and she was so needy, so we just got along when she was able to move around. I asked her to marry me. It took me forever to get permission from the army to marry a foreign citizen. But in the end, I did, and we set our wedding date. We were so happy and so in love. I was scheduled to rotate to the States next week, but she disappeared while I was on patrol the next day. They found her body in a garbage pit. I tried to get the local authorities to arrest someone, but no one cared about her. That's who they said she was. I was planning on marrying a foreigner, but in the end, I did, and we got hitched. We were so happy and in love. I was scheduled to rotate to the States next week, but then she just disappeared while I was on patrol. The next day, they found her body in a garbage pit. I tried to get the local authorities to arrest someone, but no one cared about her. That's who they said she was. Pete. This is such a sad story. Carrie came over to hug me. I was lying on my back when she wrapped me in her arms. I pushed my sister away from me so as not to create an awkward moment. Pete, you don't have to pull away from me. I'm already a big girl, and if I don't want something, I can say no. I know that, but I don't want to embarrass you or... I know I'm a grown woman and I can say no if I don't want something. I'm not trying to embarrass you or myself. Though so. Tell me about the squirrel. Oh, what kind of squirrel? Ha, that was my nickname for your husband. When I saw your engagement photo, I thought he looked kind of weird. Anyway, tell me about your marriage. Carrie laid down on her back next to me and closed her eyes. I turned on my side next to my sister and rested my head on my hand. We were so in love with each other from the very beginning, at least I was like that. He not so much. He was a gambler. I think he had a few girlfriends scattered all over the East Coast. I found out that when he was on one of his long trips, he never slept alone, and some of his girlfriends were married. Go figure. Carrie sniffed and wiped away her tears. I never knew exactly how many regular girlfriends he had, but even that was too many. Sometimes I caught a strange scent of perfume on his clothes. What finally made me realize how sloppy he can be is that I saw some selfies that one of his girlfriends posted. He had a lot of girlfriends. Some of them were married. Who would have thought? Carrie sniffed and wiped away her tears. I never knew exactly how many regular girlfriends he had, but sometimes it was too many. I caught a strange scent of perfume on his clothes. What finally made me realize how sloppy he can be is that I saw some selfies that one of his girlfriends sent him when he was in the shower after a trip. Then I rummaged through his phone and found some photos of him with some girl. There were actually a few girls there when he got out of the shower. I kicked him out of the house. The divorce was very bitter and too expensive. When we finally agreed on the terms, I left with only a few things and $5,000. My girlfriends sent him packing after I got out of the shower. I found some pics of him with a few girls. There were actually a few girls there when he got out of the shower. I kicked him out of the house. The divorce was very bitter and expensive. When we finally agreed on the terms, I left with only a few things and $5,000 in cash. I sold the house, but since we only paid for it for a year, there wasn't much to share. I traded my little Honda for something that could pull a trailer. When the divorce was finalized, I booted up and called my big, handsome brother. Now I'm just living a good life with my older brother, and I'm going to live happily ever after. Carrie sniffed again, then laughed, laughing bitterly. I hugged her, and she put her head on my chest and cried softly over her lock. I'm in a tough spot. I've always been independent, but that's about to change. My sister just moved into my new place, hoping we'll become more than just roommates. She was even ready to have my kids before she arrived this morning. I hadn't even thought about not having a date. Now, I had a really hot woman who was ready to be my life partner. The only problem was that she was my sister or stepsister, according to her story about our mother's affair. Honestly, I wasn't totally against the idea with the donor. That was my problem. Why wasn't I there? I've come to a decision. I was still hugging her while she was crying silently. We'll always have to be careful with other people, you know? I can't call you sis, and you can't call me big brother when we're around other people. I began, and Carrie looked up at me. Tears began to flow down her cheeks. I know, by the way, I've always called you Peter Petty, but we really... Hey, I was thinking, I need to come up with a story about being the arranged girl from your past. We broke up years ago because of all the breakups, and then we reconnected online after you left the army. Since I recently got divorced, I can honestly say that I contacted you after my divorce was finalized. We're now reuniting after being separated for several years. Could be a story about a long-lost love. In fact, that's pretty much what happened. She thought about it, smiled again, and wiped her tears with her t-shirt. I looked into her eyes again. Just to be clear, are you ready to live with me as my life partner? To start a family? To give birth to our children? To have and protect them in sickness and in health from this day forward? Are you ready to share my life with me as a man and his wife would do? Oh yes, Petty. I will. You know you're too hot for someone like me. Most people will wonder how I managed to persuade such a young woman to live in isolation in these northern forests. Carrie giggled. Leave it to me to worry about. If anyone gets too curious, I'll just say it's none of their business. Carrie knew she made that impression on men, and since her brother was a man, judging by my bulge, I was a big man more than her ex. If you don't want to make love, you need to stop squirming. She stopped moving. Haven't you been following this conversation, mister? Who said anything about not wanting to make love? I just swore my loyalty to you forever. We're going to start a family. In case they didn't teach you that in the army, I'll tell you to, hey, just think about having kids. You've got to make love fun now. I was messing around with Carrie, and since I served in the army for 20 years and was showered with tons of guys, I figured I'm not the biggest guy in the room, but I'm not the smallest either. Before you get upset, I know how big the average guy's thing should be. I also know from seeing it with my own eyes that the guys in my unit were usually bigger. It's just a random thought. We never really appreciate each other. It's fine if you say so. Although my ex was only half as big as you, it scared me a little. Carrie said timidly. Carrie, I promise I won't hurt you, but you have to trust me. I suddenly remembered the promise I made when they parted for the last time. Carrie, do you remember what I told you when you were 5? The promise I made to you the day I left? Do you remember the pinky oath? Yes, Pete, I remember. I swear to you that as your brother and now your mate, I will never hurt you. Never. I swear by the little finger. Having said that, I hooked arms. Carrie put her finger in mine, and I think you're going to make me a woman again tonight." She was getting used to the idea of us making love. "Why did I suddenly feel like a bride?" she said softly and shook her head. Finally, after a few minutes, she calmed down. I thought she had fallen asleep, but then she opened one eye and looked at me. "You just made me the happiest woman in the world. You're a fantastic lover, my sister Carrie, the sister for whom I had not had the slightest. I had a lot of feelings for her, and I was pretty sure she was going to be my wife forever. Since then, life has been good to me. I found the perfect match. My sister Carrie. She got pregnant with our first kid on the first night I spent with her. 9 months after that, she had a baby girl the next night. We named her Ashley. 42 years later, we have been blessed with our son, Jordan. On Carrie's 30th birthday, she blessed us with twins, Dale and Debbie. We talked about this in advance, and at the age of 43, I know Carrie and I had decided that we didn't want to have kids, and we were happy with that. We felt blessed and decided to focus on our little family. No one ever found out about our secret. We were never officially married, so there was never any reason to find out our ancestry. We've been living in harmony for 20 years now. Carrie is 45 now, and in my opinion, as beautiful as the day she got out of that old truck. Today, for the first time in my life, I have to walk down the aisle of the church. Our sweet little Ashley is getting married today. She's basically a carbon copy of her mom, except for her darker brown hair. I'm sure she'll be a great wife, just like her mom was. When I look into our little girl's eyes, all I see is love for our firstborn. "Take care of him, honey," I whisper. "I'll do that, Daddy. I love you," she says when I hand over a part of my life to another man. When I turn away from the altar, my eyes water. When I could see again, I looked into the eyes of the woman I love so much, my Carrie, my beloved, the mother of our children, my sister, and